Hey guys, good to see you again. Saturday, and it's time for the stream today. Awesome. Gonna go straight into mlops.net. How's everyone doing? Are you having a good weekend so far? How's your week? Sorry about that. I have to get some things set up here real quick. There we go. Awesome. Well, it was a busy week last week, a busy weekend. We got mlops.net 1.0 released to NuGet, which was awesome. We finally had the vertical slice from start to finish to actually present something that could be used, which I think is pretty cool. So that's already in the NuGet package store, and we are kind of getting ready for the next phase, where we're continuing building, adding stuff on top, as well as making sure things work as expected, right? And while doing some examples and samples for the repo, I kind of had a chance as well to test some things out and understand what works, what doesn't work. And that kind of led me to what I wanted to do work with today, which honestly gave me some headaches on Monday and Tuesday evening. Been quite a frustrating week in that sense, since I haven't been able to solve it. But I'm hoping that if we sit together and have a look at it, maybe we will have a better chance of doing that as one. So we'll see. But let me first show you kind of what the example looks like, and walk through that a little bit here as well, and see what some of the issues are. And if there's any questions, as always, feel free to ask them. We are here together, learning together, working on this together. So there's always that chance as well, and I definitely want your interaction, and I want your feedback and your thoughts when we work on this. So, as you may know, we had this sample repo in the library under the samples folder with different kind of samples, and it was just updated for the 1.0 release. Mostly we've added this kind of end stuff here with uploading artifacts and models and all that kind of fun stuff. But let's try to run this and see what some of the limitations are here, right? So if we set the startup project here and have a look here at our model, what are some things that we notice that we may have to want to improve here? Well, first of all, a couple of things I've seen is that it's a little bit verbose sometimes. I think we can simplify some of our method calls and how we actually use it end to end here. So in the beginning here, pretty straightforward, right? We go ahead and create our mlops builder. In our case here, we're using SQLite as our metadata service provider, and a local file model repository for our uploaded files. We'll go ahead and create an experiment and a run. Nothing special there really, right? And we'll go ahead and log our data thanks to AJ's awesome method here. We can log the hash and the schema and the columns. We'll do whatever else we usually do for ml.net here, with putting the training stuff in there. We will then go ahead and try to fit the method. So we train the method here, and then we log any hyperparameters that has been used to train the method. So like the name of the algorithm and kind of what kind of hyperparameters it has. We'll set a training time to whatever that was, and we'll evaluate the model. And based on that, we'll log the evaluation metrics. So like we log all these metrics here. So F1 score, precisions, accuracy, all those kind of stuff, right? We'll go ahead and log those, and that's all good. And we use a generic method here, so we'll log them automatically, all of them with the same name. And then we're going to log this confusion matrix as well, just to store that for future use. Cool. So all of that so far has been like before 1.0 in some ways at least. But now this is the kind of 1.0 extra added sugar that we have right here. So one of the things we have, of course, is that we can upload a model to our model repository by just calling this upload model async method and giving it the name. And that's good, right? But what happens then when we want to register model? I think that we'll mostly want to do some of these stuff in a separate file or project or process. But to demonstrate the full end-to-end here, we're doing it all in one file. But what we do then is I can get run artifacts here, and based on the run artifact we want, in our case the first one here, we can then register the model for deployment. So we can say, hey, this is the experiment ID, this is the run artifact we want to do, and this is the one that registered it. Can you please register the model so we can deploy it to production later? But one thing, you start looking at what's returned here, you will see that we have some nulls here. And we don't populate everything that we want to populate here. We populate a lot, but definitely not everything here. And that's in itself an issue, right? Even if you go here now and get the registered model that we just got registered, we also see that in general here is kind of populated. That's good. Oh, actually we have mostly things populated. That's interesting. But we don't have the confusion matrix populated here, which it should be, right? And we don't have the metrics that we actually created, they're not populated. And some other stuff here. So, in general here, we don't have a full object graph, right? There's a couple of things that are populated, but things that we expect here, or may want to access in some ways, are not populated. And we do have the run here right now, which is good, which I think is kind of interesting that has been populated. What else do we have here? You got experiment actually. We got some runs here. So it's like a semi-populated object graph, which is not great because we can't really rely that the information is proper. For example, if we go to experiment now, we can't make sure that this is actually the only run that we have had for this experiment. And in fact, it's not the only run. Like, let's say we run this again now. If we run it again, right, we would expect another run because it's the same experiment. So we should have 2 runs now. Let's wait for this to run here. Okay. So if you look at this now again here, I would expect 2 runs. Let's see if we do have that. Maybe we do have it. Nope. We only have 1 run, right? And that's because it just loaded the run that we currently did there. And there's nothing wrong necessarily with this. It's just that it is giving us a false narrative. And it's also giving us semi-loaded narrative. And it's just not very good to rely on. I don't want our product to return, depending on the calls, to return some of the properties being null when they actually are populated. And in the same way, I don't want to return like a false picture of the world. So we have to figure out a better way of loading our entity models. So what are some of the issues with that, right? Why is it so difficult to do this? Well, let me spell things out here. And I like Notepad, so we can use that real quick here. So the issue we have right now is we're using Cosmos DB as one of the providers, which means we can't use include or joins if not own properties. So in many cases we actually can't use a join or include, so it makes it a bit difficult for us to actually load the data eagerly. Second of all, we can't use lazy loading. And the reason because of that is because our client here don't have an open DB context to use later. It's like we open it and we close it. And anything we haven't returned within that small section of things is not going to get fetched, because if we use lazy loading, we're going to get an object context DB context disposed exception of some sort, right? Because the context is going to be disposed at the end of the method and it's not going to be available at all. So that's in general an issue, right? We can't use lazy loading. We are a little bit limited on what kind of methods we can use for including for joins. And then finally, to add to this as well, we don't want to load the entire graph. Okay, and what do I mean with that? Why don't we want to load the entire graph? Well, we have to use explicit loading, right? So include, that's eager loading. Load is explicit loading in Entity Framework. And they both kind of the same thing, it's just different methods, right? But in general, we don't want to use lazy loading. We want to load everything that the user may want at one time and then return it. So if our object graph is very nested and we rely on kind of parent properties and other properties to grow this graph, and we pull up the whole database, it's not necessarily something we want to do, because it's going to be a very large object and it's going to grow over time as things grow. So to give an example of that, right, let's think about experiments. We have one experiment, maybe that's called review predictor, right? But an experiment can have multiple runs. So each time we try to train this model, we have a run. So if each run has a property to experiments, as it does right now, if we're going to eagerly load the experiment will then eagerly load all its runs. So we'll go up the chain to the parent, and then we'll go down the chain again to all its children, or dependent entities. So as we do more and more runs for an experiment, each time we fetch a run, that payload is going to increase if we maintain that parent relationship or that navigation property. So that's something I think we want to remove. Makes sense so far? Let me know if it doesn't. It's completely okay. I've been thinking about this for quite a few days, and I'm not sure if I landed to the right conclusions here, but at least it's something that I think we have a say about. Alright, so we have an issue with that, and if you look at, let's look at that again actually. One of the things here, like, go into our source code here and look at one of our entities. What I mean here is that the run here, the run both has, let's see, has a run ID, right? Sorry, experiment ID here. So the experiment ID is the reference to its parent experiment, but it also have this inverse navigation property to experiment. So the dependent entity to the principal entity relationship. So by having this property here, we are then going to have to force to load the alt experiment and all of its dependent properties to present the full picture. And the same thing here is for like dependent entities from a run. For example, here we have a metric, so a validation metric. That one has a run ID, but it also has an inverse navigation property to its principal entity, which is a run here. So we end up with a very large object graph here really quickly, and I want us to avoid that, especially when we start loading data and storing data and other things. So my thought here, and what I've been trying to do without success, is to remove inverse navigation properties on dependent entities. So for example, removing a run on a metric, removing an experiment navigation property on a run. But we still want to keep the referential integrity on these, so we do want to keep like these foreign keys here, like a run ID. We just don't want to keep the relationship all the way up. And instead, if we need that, we can then navigate through the DB context instead. And to kind of write that up in a more of a, I guess, object graph on how our things stick together here, I just created this yesterday evening to be able to talk about this today a bit. So our current object model looks something like this. Whether that's good or bad, that's up for debate, of course. But this is the current data model we have. So at the top of the food chain here, we have an experiment. An experiment, right, is generally the model we're trying to create here. Whatever that is, a binary classification model or something else. It's a problem we're trying to solve. And one of these experiments can have multiple runs, right? So we can have, every time we train the model and every time we hit F5, right, for ML.NET, we do a new run. And each run can have its unique characteristics. So we can log like evaluation metrics for it, like an F1 score and accuracy. We can log hyperparameters for it. We can eventually log a confusion matrix for it, and if we like what we see, we can upload a model. So every time we upload a model, we'll get this run artifact that defines that uploaded model. And as you may have seen as well, we can then track data as well per run. So a run can have data, meaning it can have a schema, so we can know how many columns we have and what kind of columns we have, what types. Eventually here I think AD is also adding a data distribution, which is going to be great. So we can see the distribution of a certain column. So how many unique values do we have and what are they? Which is very useful for binary classification and multi-classification. And then if we have a model that we uploaded, like a run artifact, eventually we can register that model as a register model. So we may have like 20 runs, but only one of them may be good enough to be deployed to test. So we register that model through the run artifact, and it's going to have a version of 1. And then maybe later we want to have version 2 and version 3, depending on when we register a new model. And that model then can then be deployed, in our case right now, to a URI. And the deployment will need to have a deployment target as well as a registered model here. So for example, we'll say, okay, well, this is going to go to test, this is going to be go production, this is going to be stage, that's kind of what deployment target is. And these two together form the joined entity here for deployment, if that makes sense, or an association entity, has many names. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So that's kind of the object model. But the issue right now is that when we add a migration to remove the principal entities, we're having a lot of errors when running the migration. So what I want to do now is kind of walk through our entity configuration maps and figure out how to change that. And I'm going to start kind of from scratch in some ways. I'm going to start by assuming no relationships and removing them and adding them back again through this graph here, and then try to see if we can get this to work. Good. So what we've done here is we add these entity maps. And if you use the entity framework, you should see this as familiar. If you're not, that's completely okay. We can show you how these are used. But in general here, they are something called an entity type configuration, or they implement that interface here. And when we run our migrations or anything like that, or add a migration, Entity Framework Core is going to check for all of these types in assembly, and it's going to run them. And each of these can have a different kind of complexity in them, right? So for example, for deployment here, we can configure that the deployment date is required. We can configure that deployment by is required as well. So we can just make these properties required or not, and use the Fluent API to do that. So we don't have to have any annotations on these models that we could otherwise. But if we walk through these real quick here, I'm going to make sure we remove all the relationships here we have, and I want to create them again according to I think they should be. And because I think what we've done before, what I've done before, is not correct, so I don't want us to look at that. All right, cool. So all of our scalar properties, which is kind of these things, right? Strings or ents, those kind of things. Our scalar properties, I think, are more or less configured. So we have the run date being required, but we don't really care about training time. Like if someone wants to add that, that's great, but it's not required, it's optional. That's what we do here. So we have that properly set up. But now we need to define our properties here. And if you had an inverse navigation property, you can do that by doing like, you can set it up as we did before. And let's look at that actually. Because before it worked really fine, and then I removed those navigation properties and it kind of broke down, and I want to understand why that's the case, because I feel like I have a way around it. But for example, what we did before here was we said, okay, a run has many run artifacts, and each run artifact has one run. And if I delete the run artifact, if I delete the run here, then I will remove all the run artifacts. That's what cascade delete means here. And that makes sense, right? This is pretty standard and pretty straightforward. But something happened here where this stopped working when I removed its run property. And I replaced that with foreign key instead, but it still doesn't seem to work, and I'm a little bit confused about that, and I'm trying to figure that out here. But for example, let's go ahead and copy this in here and see if we can massage this again to work for our purposes. And the reason why I want to set this up is because I do want to configure our on delete actions here. I want this to be explicit. So if I copy this in, for example, for run artifacts, so remember run artifacts, right? We had a run, it has run artifacts. Many. You see that it won't work here because the run is now deleted. So we don't have a run because we only have, let's see here, we only have a run ID here. So we still have the foreign key here, we just don't have the inverse navigation property, which is going to be a bit leaner for us. So I think the way that this is solved usually is doing like with one and has foreign key, something like that. And then you can do like a generic foreign key property here. Like this. This is kind of what I thought you would do, but now it doesn't seem that it was working. Let's see. Let's see, I thought that worked, but apparently not. Run artifacts. Didn't I already have the type argument here? Okay, so now we're gonna go into this fun stuff of figuring these things out here. I thought I already had it. Let's see, I know I created it before. Let's see what we changed here. Has foreign key, okay. So we may not actually need this generic one here, that's fine. Okay, so we could skip that actually completely here and just say, okay, we have many run artifacts. It has one run and has foreign key run ID, and this is going to be on the run artifact. So to me that makes a lot of sense. And if it doesn't make sense to you, please let me know. That's completely fine, because it doesn't work, and I'm getting frustrated why it doesn't work. But I'm gonna add this full graph here, and then we'll see if we can get this migration to work. But there's something in this that doesn't play well, and I'm yet to understand what that is. So we have metrics, right, and then we have hyperparameters. If we look at the graph here again, we have a run artifact, we have hyperparameters, we have metric, and then we have a confusion matrix here that we need to set up. And the confusion matrix is a bit different because that's going to be has one confusion matrix, and with one. And actually, let me see, I think I had good documentation here on this. I was trying to go back to the basics here because I feel like it was something I was missing and I just couldn't figure it out. Let's see. That's one, with one, that's foreign key. Okay. Well, we could try that again. Yeah, I feel like this can be just left otherwise. So if you look at the confusion matrix here, I would expect this to just add this run ID right here as the shadow property, but they already have one. This is kind of the thing here, and I wonder if the table name here messes this up. Let me just do, I want to add one thing here. So builder has key. Okay, I'm gonna add that one because I think that's kind of needed. Okay, so we see here that we have run artifacts, we have metrics, parameters, confusion matrix, run ID. So we've kind of covered these, and the reason why I don't have data here is because data doesn't have, don't think that we have a property to it, but we could definitely add it if you wanted to. Data here has a run ID, but doesn't have any other things here, and we don't have, we actually don't have that here. We don't have any reference to data on the run, so I'm going to keep that without that, I think. I guess we can actually add it as well. It doesn't hurt. We do need to have some kind of referential integrity here. We'll leave it, it's fine. Okay, so the run is kind of configured, I think, in my mind. So let's move on to the experiment, because the experiment is like the next person in the food chain here, right? So we have an experiment. So go to the experiment map here, and we'll configure the experiment. So if you look at the experiment here, we can say that builder has many runs, right? With one has foreign key, and we have foreign key here. It's going to be experiment ID. And on delete here, if we delete the experiment, we do want to delete all of the runs, because that would make sense to me at least. There's no point leaving them there. So it'll be cascade delete deletion here. So to me that makes sense. I got banana flies everywhere, or fruit flies. Yeah. Okay, so that should be good. So experiment is kind of configured here, because that's a relationship they have. So if you continue down the food chain here now, we have the experiment configured with the run. There's no need to configure these for relationships because they already configured on the experiment. So all of these should be okay. But we do need to configure run artifact, because that one has a registered model. So we should do that. So we can go to the run artifact map right here, and we can say, hey, you actually have something here. You got one registered model. I thought maybe we don't have that actually. That can actually be an issue. So run artifact, I feel like that would have made sense. But let's see, can we have multiple registered models for one run artifacts? We can't. We can only have one. And does it make sense to have more than that? Probably not. That's probably the relationship we want to keep though. We probably want to, because right now this registered model points to an run artifact here, right? Because it comes from somewhere. And at the same time here, we do also want to make sure we have a registered model here. So I think we can add that. That actually would make sense to me. So let's go ahead and do that. We can only have one per run artifact. And let's see why this doesn't want to work. Okay. Registered model. And this can be null because we may not have one, right? So it should be an optional relationship. So let's go ahead and define that here. So we should have one registered model with one. So we have one run artifact can have one registered model only, right? Has foreign key. And where is this one going on? Do we need to do that on the run artifact? I think so. Yeah. So that has a run artifact ID as a foreign key. Awesome. And then is optional is, so here is required is going to be false because we don't want to enforce that. And on delete here, we want to, if you remove a run artifact, I think we actually want to remove the registered model as well. Okay, I think that makes sense. Okay, awesome. Any questions so far? Any thoughts? Any improvements you would like to do? So what we're doing here, for those who just joined here, we're walking through this dependency chain here to try to configure these relationships properly and see if we can get the migration to work where we have a better integrity, but also have removed our inverse navigation properties that we currently have. So now we done run artifact here, and next one on the line is the registered model here. So if we go to the registered model map here, a registered model has a deployment, so we can deploy a registered model, but it has many deployments because you can deploy it to test, stage, production, right? So we can have many deployments for a registered model. And I think I removed that before, but I'm going to add it back because it does make sense for me that they exist here as a property. So we'll put that here. A list, deployment. Okay, deployments, right? Okay, great. And let's look at this. So now we should have, this one should have many deployments, but each deployment should only have one registered model, and he has a foreign key of registered model ID. On cascade delete here, on deletes. So if you delete a registered model, we do want to delete all of the deployments. I would say that is the most sane thing here. I don't think we'll do that, but that's going to be the behavior I think I want to see here. Okay, and we also have an experiment here, but we're not going to define that necessarily as a relationship right now. I think we want to avoid those definitions, but we'll see if they work or not. Okay, all right, so now let's go down the food chain one more step here. So now we are down to deployment here. Deployment here has nothing really, but the deployment target though has many deployments, because the deployment itself, it's kind of flat in many ways. It has references to where it came from, so which model and which deployment target it came from, but it doesn't know much else about the world. But a deployment target, on the other hand, has many deployments as well. So we'll go ahead and add that, and then we'll go ahead and add this here. Has many deployments. There you go, deployments. It has one. Let's see what's going on here. What is going on? I'm just gonna copy paste this one here. Let's see. Alright, so interesting. Oh, it's because we haven't done that yet. Okay, so we have many deployments, and this one should have a deployment target ID as the proper foreign key. If we delete the deployment target, then we want to delete all of its deployments. I think that is still a thing that we want to do. Cool. All right. And if we look at deployment target here, I think we can do some other stuff here as well. Like create a date here should be required, right? So we'll go ahead and add that to it as well. Making sure that that's properly set up in the database. Okay. So what do y'all think? Is there anything we missed so far? I think it's pretty good, and I'm gonna try to run a migration now and see if we can get this working properly. Before I do that, I'm gonna just check in these changes here, so we can have flat migration we can remove. Okay, yep, that's good actually. That's probably gonna help. Interesting. I see. I'm starting to see actually what of the issues I had there, what some of the issues were. Experiment map. Hopefully this is gonna work actually. I think walking through it with you guys definitely has improved this. We will see in a bit. Empty map updates. Okay, let's run some migrations, shall we? Oh, okay, there's more things apparently. Let's go ahead and add all these guys to it. Okay. Additional. So we've added support for migrations as part of 1.0 to make sure that we can actually support any client using this as well, which is good. But we have migrations now in both our relational projects here. So SQLite and SQL Server, right? And you will find that under the migrations folder here under SQLite. So you'll see here we have initial creates, we have some other stuff here, and same thing with SQL Server here. And this is the first migration we have. And we need to add one for each of these, but they're going to be identical. There's going to be slight changes between them, but that's going to be handled by Entity Framework. But before, I wonder if we before do that, I think it's fine. We'll add a migration, we'll merge master later, and we'll add a blank migration. Because I know that Will added a migration this morning, which is fantastic, but that will probably create some issues, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and just merge that later. So to add a migration, it's pretty straightforward. You set the startup product to, for example, SQL Server. You go to the package manager console here, and we'll say that we're going to use SQL Server as that default product. We type in add a migration, and then the name of the migration. In our case here, we're going to do remove inverse navigation property. And that's going to start generating a migration against, in this case, SQL Server. And let's go ahead and start up the container, because I think that's going to break right now. I don't think that's created, that's the issue. We'll see. Close this samples repo. Container, Docker. Let's see if you can get this started up here. So we have a SQL Server container that we run against, which is helpful in these scenarios here. Let's see. Come on, containers. Let's do it. So anyone have any fun plans this weekend or next week? What are y'all gonna do? Anyone watching the Champions League matches in soccer? Let's see, let's start this one. And I'm going to undo these stuff for now. Gonna remove these and start again here. Let's connect to this server, make sure that works. Where is, there it is, SQL Server. Connect to localhost here. Okay, perfect. So we got a SQL Server database right here. This is the one we're going to run against, just for simplicity. And we'll go ahead and try this again. And then what we can do after that is inspect the migration to understand if it's actually doing what we want it to do, and then try to run update database to see if it actually works, because I've been running into issues where it doesn't want to work and it's super frustrating. And maybe together we can figure this out. Alright, so it's not too bad, long at least. So it's going to drop some stuff here and probably re-add them again. So it dropped a lot of stuff here, like constraints of different kinds, and it's going to re-add them. But it's only adding 2 new ones here. It's adding a foreign key for register model here, so we have that one. Okay, so it's adding a foreign key constraint between register model and deployment, and that makes a lot of sense. And the same thing against run artifact and model. That's fantastic. And then, but it's dropping some columns here. It's dropping experiment ID in deployment, which I think is interesting, because I feel like that is, have I removed that? Oh yeah, I removed it actually. That's true. This makes sense. I didn't want that nested dependency, so that makes sense. So these make sense. And then it's dropping an index. And it's dropping a foreign key between run ID. Okay. Not sure if I want this though. It's dropping a lot of foreign keys here for deployments and register models here. So what it's doing here is that it's saying that I don't know about runs and experiments, because right now a register model has a foreign key directly to the experiment and run here, to have some referential integrity here. And what we're doing right now is saying, nope, I do not know about a run. I do not know about an experiment and a run artifact here. And that's interesting. I would think at least that would have been created. It may work. I'm a little confused here, because I feel like that would have been set up here when we did this run artifact map here, right? We're saying that a register model has one model with one foreign key. I guess I need to do it both ways in this case here. No, it owns it. It's fine. That's okay. That's okay. Let me make this smaller, by the way. I don't know why they're so big. Okay. A couple of things here though. Let's go back to migration here. It's not terrible. I can live, I guess, without these, but it would be nice to have them as well. And the same thing for deployment here. Is that deployment actually doesn't know about its registered model anywhere. I would almost like to add these back here and try it again. What do y'all think? Everything else looks really good. It's just I don't like that we're dropping foreign keys between these ones, and deployment also drops to registered model, I think. Well, this is okay actually. This one is fine. But the other two is not okay. Should they be that further down? Okay, let's try this. I'm sorry, I'm babbling here. I'm mostly happy that we got this far, because it's actually much better than it was before, believe it or not. Okay, let's discard these changes here, and let's look at setting up a relationship properly here. Let me just push this last change here. Lowercase lambda. So what we're saying is that our register model needs better referential integrity here. So builder here has, so in some ways we want to set a foreign key here as 1, and I wonder if we can do something like this, has 1 experiment. Okay, that works, okay, with many registered model. I'm really freestyling right now, we'll see if this works. Okay, this may not work actually. Navigation name. Yeah, we don't really have a navigation property for that. That's the issue, right? I just want that GUI to be a foreign key, that's all I want to that table. But I don't have a navigation property on either side. But I could set that up, of course. That would be... But I think that would be too nested if I do that. I can also drop these dependencies here, but we kind of use them for a lot of things here to make it easier for us. So let me Google this real quick here. I think that there should be an easy solution here. Define foreign key for without navigation properties in plural. Okay, so we can't do the Fluent API. Yeah, this makes sense. So we need 1 foreign key navigation property in one side at least to do that. But we can do it ourselves. If you don't change anything. Okay. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to create it ourselves. And I'm okay with that. So we don't have one, but we do want to make sure we have referential integrity here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add this migration again. And then we're going to do some magic on these. And then we're going to run it and see if that works. Hopefully that will, and that would be good. That would be pretty cool if it does. Okay, let's see. Okay, so now we have that done, and I have to I need to go ahead and just add some suppressions here, because we enforce XML comments for public classes, so we need to apply. Just do that. A little tedious, but that's what we do. Okay. So let's look at this again. So we have a drop in the foreign key here to between deployment and experiment, and that is okay. That we want to do. But we're also dropping the one between deployment and register model, and I don't think I want to do that. So what we can do here is we can say, actually go ahead and add a foreign key here. Can I do this? Okay, I do want to have The child table name here is going to be registered model, and the parent table is going to be experiment. Okay, experiment ID here, sorry. And this is going to be table name parent, and what is the last one here? Name table column name. I'm not sure what the last one is going to be here. Let me see. Child table name, parent ID, parent table name. What is the last one here? I think they changed this syntax since the last time they did this answer. The foreign key constraint name, okay. The table that contains the foreign key. Alright, I think for simplicity, I think we're going to skip this for now, and we're going to add them later if needed. But let's see if we can get this one just to run, and if it does, then we can add these intrinsics later, I think. Because otherwise, I don't think we'll get where I want to go today. Let's go ahead and make sure this builds properly. Okay. Alright, so let's double check this again. We're dropping some foreign keys, that's all good. And we are dropping some indexes, dropping this column, adding foreign keys here for that. Okay, let's see if this runs. And do that by running update database, and then we'll inspect it manually to see how things look. Okay, it didn't. Okay, already an object named data in a database. Yep, I know that. Do we already have? Let me check here. Something is up here. Okay, so this one is not properly run here, so I'm going to remove this one and run it again, because I think that is causing these issues. It should have had a migration history row here for initial create, and it didn't, and that's why it's confused, because we have entities in database but it shouldn't be there. So let's see if this works better. Okay, build succeeded. Let's see if it adds some migrations. Okay, applying. Wow, okay. Migrations is added successfully. That is actually the first time in a while, so that's good. Let's go ahead and inspect this and see if it actually is also looking good. So if you look at the confusion matrix here, we have various columns. Run ID, a foreign key, perfect. Not null for the serialized matrix, perfect. Foreign key for this one, perfect. Data, yep, looks good. This one we probably need to set up properly here, because we don't have a foreign key here, so that's something to look at. That should be a foreign key. Let's see where to go. So things we need to do here is data run ID needs to be. So look at that later. Data hash could be null, that's okay. That's not required. But this looks good here. This looks good here. And deployment, let's look at that. Deployment ID is primary key, deployment target ID is foreign key. Perfect, perfect. Looks good, guys. And deployment target ID here looks good. Okay, so far looks good. We should have run ID foreign key here. Very nice. Metric here, metric ID is primary key, and run ID is foreign key. That's perfect. So now we have these, right? So this is we have to look at later. So register model needs to be a foreign key. We can do that later, but that's still something we should do. Registered model. We should have run ID as F key. We should have experiment ID as F key. So right now they're just non-nullable, and that's, you know, something, but not everything. And the same thing for run artifact. Okay, it's fine. Run here, good. It's good. Okay. So overall it looks pretty good. We got some small stuff here, but generally it looks really good. So let's at least commit this one. This is going to be a good one. Migration for reverse. For inverse. Alright, so let's look at some of the things we need to add here and see if we can get that fixed. So first of all, we have, this has to be a manual migration, but then this one does not need to be that. So we have, when it comes to data, we have a couple of options here. We could either add that manually. I'm trying to think of, does it make sense that we always fetch the data for a run? And if so, we should probably add that reference there. And I think it may make sense to do that. But we have to add some other solvers then and some other stuff. And that may be a little work, but it's okay. Before we do that, actually let's go ahead and add the same migration for SQLite. Because that hasn't been done yet. So that's going to be really quick. We go ahead and add a startup project here. Go to the package manager console, set startup project. Because we need to have this parity here and make sure they're both the same. Okay, perfect, so it looks good. And then we'll go ahead and look at this a bit more. Lots of comments here. This looks very similar, so that's good. That's what we want. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and update the database here to make sure that that works. Yeah, and I know that today's session probably is not the most fun one when it comes to machine learning or MLOps in general, but it's important. Oh, interesting. So we can't drop a foreign key operation. So why did it create that migration then? That's interesting. Because I'm pretty sure I have defined to use SQL Server, SQLite here. Use SQLite, local. Huh. Why is this not working? Okay, well that's an issue. Let's go and look at this. Why are we creating a migration for this if we don't care about it? Workaround. Interesting, interesting. Okay. Well, this is an issue going forward. If we definitely have to make sure that things are up to date if we have to start removing the SQLite database and stuff like that. But I guess that's not great, for sure. So it sounds like we have to... Well, I'm glad we don't have any SQLite people right now, I think, yet, but this is not great that we have to do this. So it doesn't sound like we can support dropping foreign keys here. I didn't know that SQLite had some limitations. Interesting. Huh. Not supported number of scheme operations are supported by a majority of other things. Supported, okay. So I guess we don't need to drop those in some ways. Create index work, create table works, add column works, drop index works, drop table, rename column, rename table, insert update, drop column. I know what rebuild means here. Okay. Okay, this is not great. I didn't think that we had these limitations in SQLite, but apparently we do. So some of the things we can't do right now is dropping these specific ones here. So what we could do here, since we don't have, I'm pretty sure we don't have any clients using SQLite yet, what we could do is to remove both of these migrations. We can then go ahead and create a new initial crate, honestly, and make sure that going forward we are a bit better on these things here. And I think that's what we need to do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove this one, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure we drop the database, and I'll do that by just cheating a bit here. By going to MLOps context, I'm going to go to the database here somewhere, database, and we're going to go ahead and database ensure deleted here. But this is interesting. I wasn't sure about that, honestly. We'll see if this works for now. SQLite, I'll run all of these, so we delete the database. If someone has a better way of deleting the database for SQLite, let me know. I haven't figured that out yet. But we'll delete that, and then we'll go ahead and add a migration against that database. That is initial crate. And that has to be what we do right now, I think. Okay. And then what we'll do here is add migration. We'll call this initial crate. Going forward, I think we need to probably do better work on writing proper SQL here, but we have the benefit of being early on this library to be able to do this. So that's good. Okay. That seems to be generated nothing, which is surprising. Okay, interesting. Alright, well, I'm not sure why it's empty, honestly. I wouldn't expect it to be empty. But let's see. Okay, so here's things being created at least. Okay, I think that makes sense. So let's go ahead and update this database here and see if this works. Okay, so that looks better. I'm gonna run some unit tests here, integration tests, to make sure this actually looks good. I think we may have one or two failing. We'll look at that later. But that's interesting. The SQLite is going to have some limitations. I hopefully can at least create tables here, right? Yeah. Okay. So we have to make sure that things. Add column is fine. We can't just really change existing columns. That makes sense. Okay. Well, doesn't make sense, but. Okay. No table. Okay, this is gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. I would have expected this to have done more stuff. Because this is the initial create before. Okay, I'm going to discard these changes and we'll try something else here. Sorry about this sidetrack, guys. This is not what I expected us to do right now. But that's development, right? And short deleted. Let's go ahead and clean up the database. Have as change properties here, nothing really. Okay. So the initial create here is very different than before. This is what I would expect it to be looking at. So if we remove this. Oh, maybe I didn't remove that one. That would have made sense. Okay, I'll remove the whole table here. Okay, that's probably the issue. Okay, let's see if this is better or worse. Okay, that looks better. Now we have proper tables here. Okay, good. So I wonder if we can add a foreign key constraint directly. So we got a couple of things we probably want to add directly to this one, but this looks a lot better. Okay, and I may want to look at that directly so we get that over and done with here, because otherwise we have to create a new migration for this, and we don't want to do that, I think. Okay. So what was the things we need to add here? Well, we need to look at a foreign key run ID. So the data table here should have a foreign key. So now with the data schema here as a foreign key. So it's foreign key parent table to which table, and then the name of the foreign key. Okay, that's good. So you can copy this one, and then we can add that to the data table, which is right here, right? So we can say that, hey, this is great. I want a foreign key from data to run, and it should be run ID. So the principal table here is going to be run. The principal column is going to be run ID, and run ID is going to be my thing here. And if I remove that one, it should be cascade delete. Okay, so that should add that to the data table. That's great. So now we can have the same idea here for yeah, that's good, to the register model. So we need to add a couple foreign keys there to do that for our current idea here. So that registered model. Okay. Okay, so we got that right here. Create table, and that's constraints. So we want to do a couple here, right? So first one we want to do is we want to make sure that we have one from principal table registered model, and it should go to, well, we can do actually run directly, run, and that should be exactly what we want to do. But then we want to do the same thing for experiment. So experiment should have one, experiment ID should have one, experiment ID, experiment, and then experiment ID here. And then we want another foreign key as well to, and cascade delete is fine, I think. Run artifact. Run artifact ID, right? Run artifact ID. Okay. And if we remove run artifact, we should remove the register model. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so let's see if this works. To update it. Now I've added the constraints that we didn't do in SQL Server, so we'll have to do that later in our SQL Server implementation as well. But this should really be the full current. Sorry, I did not want to do that. I wanted to update database. Can I stop this? Okay, we stopped it. So let's run update database against the SQLite implementation here and see how it looks like. Well, I can't see how it looks like, but let's see if it works. Okay, that worked. That's good. Can we also run on these tests? Will they work? Hopefully they will. So we added this. Okay. Good. So it looks like that worked properly. Actually, let's go ahead and run all of these, because this one should be more or less finished in terms of that wiring up. We just need to make sure we do the same for our other stuff for SQL Server here. And if we got some failing ones, we'll look at that a bit later, I think. Yep, we got some failing ones. Okay, we got some foreign key constraints fail there. Interesting. I kind of want to look at that actually, because that may mean that we have some optional ones here or not. I like when I see foreign key constraints, because that means we're doing something proper, I think. Yeah, we have some foreign key constraint fail. So let's look at one here first, just to make sure there's nothing we have messed up here. So that's deployment catalog test, create deployment, create deployment. And I'm doing this right now because I don't want us to have to redo this migration later once we've applied it. Model deployment, catalog test. Okay, so what could be missing here? Create deployment target, register model here. And we are going to create a registered model here. Deploy model async here. So probably something in here is not done all the way now. So deployment here should now have register model ID, deployment target ID, and that should all be good. Because we didn't change that, changed registered model really. So it's something with the register model here that we're not doing properly, I think. So let's look at that. So register model, I think it's in here. So experiment ID is set, and run ID is set, but run artifact ID is set as well. So that's interesting. But let's go ahead and put a breakpoint here because I think something here that's breaking. So let's look at this and see how this works. Come on, let's see. So getting this started up. Let's see. Okay, so that failed way before that even. Interesting. So that makes it forces us to put a breakpoint a lot earlier here. Let's put that here. There's something fundamentally there that is not set. That's okay. Let us figure out together what's going on here. Okay. Is it create experiment async? Nope, good. Create run. And I don't think this could be an issue, right? No, I don't think so neither. Okay. So that's failing on upload. So it has to do with creating the run artifact here. That's probably the issue. And I think we have a relationship as that is required when it shouldn't be, probably. Run artifact here. We have a run artifact. So I think right now we have a constraint here on register model, and it's optional. It should be optional at least. So let's look at that. Entity maps. I thought I made it optional already. It's not required, so. But let's run this and see here. I think there's something going on here that's odd, to say the least here. We don't need that, so why is that an issue? Run artifact should only have that. Let's see. Okay, go in here. So run artifact here now is going to be pretty empty. It's going to have a null register model, which should be fine because I set that as that, but it has the other constraints here. But it still fails there. Okay, so it's currently requiring a registered model, which I don't want it to, and that's interesting. Let's look at that migration real quick here. Let's see what it's doing here. We have the deployment targets, we got the registered model here, we got a run artifact somewhere, right? And I think we probably have a constraint here on run artifact that we don't want. Yeah, you see that here. Foreign key. Is it because... Interesting. Yeah, this is not nullable false here. It's an option. It should be an optional one. Why is it not optional? Okay. Okay, so let's see. What can we do here? We have an issue where let's look at SQL Server actually, see if we can get some hints here. Register model requires a run artifact. That is okay because we need one. But in run artifact, does it have anything else here? It doesn't have a register model, so I don't understand why it's here. So it's creating a shadow property, this is what this currently is, but it's not setting it to optional, which is a little bit concerning, I think. And it's probably because I'm not setting the whole thing as optional. But I'm trying to figure out how I can fix this. I can either do that by removing that, I think. I think what I'll do is I will remove. Yep, I know what I want to do. Alright, it's going to take a little while here, so bear with me. But I'm going to copy the things we've done here for the data and the register model here. So we do want this one to be added for the data, right? And then for register model, we do want to add some other stuff here. Register model. So we have these they want to add, right? So we want to add run artifact ID, because that makes sense, and run ID. But we don't want anything else here. So we're going to remove this again, the whole migration table. We're going to go to run artifact here. And we're going to remove this register model property here, because we don't really care about that one, and it's causing us more issues than it's worth right now. And then we're going to go and try to delete that database, and we'll do that by cheating again. Database, ensure deleted. Run one test. And then we'll go ahead and add a migration again, and hopefully that foreign key constraint should not be there anymore. Don't want that foreign key property. Okay, apparently that's not good. Yeah, we don't need this one anymore. We'll need to make sure we remove and add a new one with SQL Server as well. And we can do that, that's fine. Cool. Let's see. Let's see. So that's good, that failed, okay. So let's go ahead and do this again. Go ahead and add back to migration here for SQLite, because everything should be good. We'll add back the changes we did for data and register model, and then we'll do this again. A lot of nitpicking here, but if we get this right, our foundational model is going to be much better, and we will actually have a good place to start here. So let's go to run artifact here. We shouldn't have any annoying stuff here anymore, hopefully, once we get there. Okay, so now we only have one constraint to run ID, and that's exactly what I want. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add back the following to register model here. But yeah, if we get this right, it's going to be a lot easier to maintain in the future. And a lot less changes to this model as well, which is kind of what we want to achieve here. Get that data back. So that's why I'm spending so much time on this right now. I just want to make sure we have a solid foundation where people can build on top of this without worrying about this going forward. And I also will sleep better if I know that we've done everything we can to ensure quality here, right? Okay. Let's see. Alright, so let's do update database here. And let's see how this is doing now instead. Okay. That sucked. Okay, it's because we didn't remove it apparently. Okay, interesting. Let's run that again, I guess then. Database, ensure deleted. Come on, go away. I thought that was removed already. SQLite, right? Yeah, good. Okay, let's try it again. Come on, be nice to me. Be nice, please. What's going on here? Okay. What is going on? Constraints, foreign key, data run ID. What is going on here? Okay. So it doesn't like the first one because it thinks it's already there. But I feel like, did we remove it just now? I want to remove this thing here, I think, because this is probably the discard these changes. Should only have one. It should be a snapshot. That should be it. Okay, good. That worked better. I think we just had something messed up there. Let's run all these again and see if that's helpful or not. It would be good if I can get this to work. We did have at least gone much further than I did before, which I'm happy about. So that's a nice start. Okay, so far so good. Okay, we're still getting the same errors there. And more errors than before. That's not good. Oh Jesus, concurring exceptions. This is not what we want. Expect type 0. Oh, this is so complicated in some ways. What is going on here? If I run just this one, is this going to work for me? Can't get a break on this one. Okay, at least it's consistent. That is a good thing. Okay. I can try to push it and we can see if that works better. But why are we getting more issues now than we were getting before? That I don't understand. Alright, last try here. We're going to discard this one so we don't have a database. We're going to discard these ones, add them again, and then we're going to see if that works. Hopefully that will do something better. Add these ones back to register model. Okay, perfect. Let's see here. Okay, perfect. Let's run it again and see if we can get this working, but something is really messed up here. And it's driving me nuts. Okay. Why are you decided to stop working now? We're so close. Just let me do this, please. Well, at least we're getting this. Huh, okay, well, it's getting table already assist here, actually. So maybe I should not look at that. I should rather look at interesting. Initialize, yeah, I know it already exists. But why are you trying that again? Why are you trying to add it again? We have migrate there, it's all good. I don't get it. I do not get it. Why are you trying to add it again? Exactly. It's already up to date. There's no need to do anything else here. So when I run this, let's go ahead and put that breakpoint here in the test here. Actually, let me not push this one. Let me fix it first. I'm almost tempted to push it now and just be like, I'm sure it'll work in a CI build server, but this needs to work here as well. Because we're doing stuff here. Use SQLite. what are you gonna do here? Yeah, you're not gonna do anything unexpected. And that's gonna be done, right? When let's debug that one. Not happy with this. Not happy with this. Ensure created. Well, why are you doing that then? I think what's happening here is I'm not actually removing the database as I thought I was. Because I obviously have it left and it has the incorrect schema in it. So we'll try again, but I feel like I've already done this and it doesn't work. But it definitely looks like I have the database still remaining, and that's kind of causing issues here. So let's try this again. Otherwise I'll just push it and we'll see if it works in a CS server with a clean environment. Because I think my environment locally is just messed up right now. And it's causing a lot of issues. Okay, that's failing. Perfect. Okay. I can put a breakpoint here because I want to see what's happening right here. Okay. Let me check one thing here first before we go into this migration here. Provider. SQLite DB context. Okay. So that works. So if I continue now, will it, I guess, maybe work, but will the next time work? Oh, too many breakpoints everywhere. Okay. So now we have other issue list tear down here. Okay, so we go back to that at least. So in tear down, we have something instead. And I guess it has to do with Cascade delete actually we've done now, so that's interesting. So it may actually be okay. It may just be do an update here. So we have this tear down right here to remove things, but now I think I actually don't need to do all this because this should be mostly removing experiments here. So what it's saying, I think here is saying, hey, I'm trying to remove things here, but it's already been removed. Yeah, I think that's the issue. So I think what we can do is remove all of these, honestly, and just have experiments. So if you remove an experiment now, in general, it should all be removed, I think. And that would be nice, because everything is kind of cascade delete on experiments now. So if I remove an experiment, I expect other things to be cleaned up here. Look at that. Alright, let's see if the other ones run. If they do, I'll almost cry of joy, honestly. Because this has been a rough morning. This is not what you want to do on Saturday, is hitting your head against EF Core. But at the same time you kind of want to, because you want to fix these stuff. Wow, it worked. Oh, the joy when it works, the joy when it works. Alright, I'm gonna push this change up, and then I feel like this one can be ignored, honestly. Ignore file. Okay. So we got that. And that. Okay. Added migration for what's it called? Actually, let's not ignore that one. And migration for SQLite. Cool. All right. So now we have to go back and redo the one for SQLite, but we're getting close to our SQL Server. But that's much more my alley because I can actually see what's going on there. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we want to do here is we want to remove the migration that we have right now, and then we want to re-add one because we want to add those constraints, right? We can also add a migration honestly directly towards that. That's probably just easier. So we'll say SQL Server, set a startup project. Let's do that, could be quicker. Set a SQL Server here, add migration, add constraints. So if we run this, I expect it to be like an empty migration because we shouldn't have anything. Well, we should have some stuff actually changed. Let's see. Okay, so we removed this foreign key at least here, which is fine. That's kind of what I expected because we removed that on the model. But now we have to do some other magic here. We need to figure out the syntax for these things. This has been a great Entity Framework Core, EF Core lecture almost right now, or like learning experience. But not really what I wanted to do, but that's okay. Okay. So right here, we need to do some other stuff here. So we need to add the constraints that we did before, right? So we have these constraints for data, we have the constraints for other stuff. So let's go ahead first adding constraint for data. Migration builder, add foreign key, and this should be the name, I think, right? So foreign key, so we can just, I'm gonna put it over to the left here so it goes faster, and then we gotta just copy paste some stuff here. So the name here is going to be foreign key data run ID. The column is going to be run ID, I think. String name table. Okay, table. This is going to go to table data. The column it's going to be run ID, I think. Let me make sure this is what I expected here. The foreign constraint name, the table that contains the foreign key, so that's going to be the data table. The column that's constrained, that's going to be run ID. And the table to which the foreign key is constrained. Okay, principal table, and that's going to be run. Right, so that's going to be here, data run ID, and that's going to be run. Like that. I think that is all we need. Let's look at it again. I think that was all we needed. If so, we'll copy paste that for the rest here. And on deletes. Okay, so if we delete, we don't want any action on that, so it's fine. It should be perfect as it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and add those for other stuff here. Actually, we don't need to copy all of them at the same time. So now we're going to do register models here. So we have that, and it should go from registered model, and it should go to, it should still be run ID and run, I think. Yep, that's all good. Okay, and then we have other constraints here. It's going to be run artifact here, or experiment, sorry. So it's going to be a foreign key to the experiment table here. It's going to be experiment as the principal table here, experiment, and no, it's going to be the same. Register model is the where it belongs. experiment's gonna be here, and experiment's gonna be the principal table, and the final one here is going to be run artifact. Okay, run artifact. Run artifact ID, and it's going to be run artifact. Okay. So now in the down here, we're going to drop these. So we're going to do migration builder, drop foreign key, and I think that's all we need to do is to add these in here. So we'll do that. It's going to be on the data table, right? I love manual stuff here, right? And we'll do the same thing but for these ones. So it's going to be on the register model table, and I messed up here. That's good, I saw that. And a little bit two more, and then we'll apply it and see if this works. Okay. Great. All right, let's see. If we do update database now, SQL Server, hopefully this is going to run, and hopefully I will also see these changes in the database, so that's good. Look at that in a bit. Identifier criminal. Okay, suppose identifier. What is identifier? I thought I added everything I needed here. Table name, table column, principal table. What is the identifier? Did I misspell something maybe? That could be a thing for sure. Data, registered model. Actually what I can do here is I can do name off instead to make sure that we are doing this properly. Just to make sure nothing's misspelled here. I think I misspelled one of these properties probably. Okay. Data, register model, that's good. And then this is going to be name of run. This is going to be name of experiment. Experiment. This is going to be name of run artifact. Okay, so at least those are correctly spelled. Let's look at the other ones here. So we have run ID, and this should be run. Okay. And then this one here should be run ID, that's all good. Experiment ID, run artifact ID. Let's run it again. We maybe something we're missing here, but let's try it again and see if that works. And try to understand what's going on here. Nope. Okay, so that didn't help. And I'm not sure exactly which one is failing right now. We're going to write database. Let's Google this one, as one does, right? I don't need that. Is it that it doesn't know which identifier is which here? Let's see what's going on here. Principal column. I guess we could try to do this one. It may seem like it can't find that one. Let's try that. It doesn't hurt at least, right? So principal column, and we'll set this to let's see if that helps. And this is going to be experiment ID. This is going to be run artifact ID. Okay, let's see if that helps. Maybe. Maybe not. Okay, apparently that was the issue. We couldn't find that one. That's okay. Let's see if how this looks first of all. So I should have now applied a couple of constraints here on this one. So we see that's foreign key not null, experiment ID not null, perfect, run ID not null. Looks really good. I'm glad about that. Okay. And if you look at constraints here, or keys, sorry, we should have those foreign keys here. Great. And we should have the same thing on data now. So data should have constraints as well here, or foreign keys here. Primary key. Sorry. Run ID. Great. All right, let's run a test and see if that passes. And because we may have some other issues here on SQL Server, but we can run them. And then we have to run the Azure ones too to make sure they pass. But if this works, at least we should have a fully hardened, I guess, solid database model here. We'll see. I don't know. Don't even dare to look anymore. Oh, they fail. Let's see. So what is going on here? Tear down. The delete statement conflict with the reference constraint. Data run ID. Okay. So it doesn't like the delete here. Okay. Maybe we should. Is it because I have data already here? Is that why? Let's see if I have data that's already here. Okay, this is the data. I can try to remove the database and add it again after it's clean here, but I'm not sure that's going to help. What's it saying here? The delete statement conflicted with a reference constraint. Run ID. So if I remove data, if I remove a run, I think what we're saying here is that if I remove a run, then data is going to be staying there. I don't want that. Ugh, that means. But how did that work for a SQL Server, SQLite? So the issue here, I think, is the cascade delete here. So let's go ahead and go down one migration here. It's going to go down one migration. Add migration. So I'm going to say please go down one migration. So we're going to do update database target migration. I think you can do that. Target migration. Can't you do that? Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to remove this database because I'm lazy. And then I'm going to change our migration here that we just added, so that's okay. The issue I think is the cascade delete here and run here. So cascade delete here needs to be updated, I think. Is it called on cascade delete? What is it called? Let me find the proper name here. I think on update, on delete. There we go. That's the one we want to do. So on delete here, if we remove a run, we do want to be cascade here. Because if I remove that run, then I want this to be removed as well. And I think I want the same, honestly, for all of these. If I want to experiment or run here, I want everything else to be removed as well here. So let's go ahead and change that directly so it looks better. So it's been a fun morning. Okay. So now let's go ahead and add to the database here and run the test here. That should hopefully create a little bit better structure. Maybe not, maybe. We'll see. I think we may not need it for these ones because they are already gonna do it anyway. So we'll see if that's, yeah, it's gonna break. Exactly, yeah. So we don't need it on these ones because they are going to be doing that anyway. However, we do need it for the data because that's the one that we haven't set up yet. Let's try this again. Let's see if this works now. Okay, that was better. I'm learning a lot from this, at least. That's the only good thing I think right now is I'm learning. I wish it would be easier to learn, but the only way to learn, I think, in some ways is just to do it and then understand what's going on and then have some guardrails with documentation. That really helps, I think. Okay. That looks better already. Ooh, so close, so close. Okay, we only have one failing. And it still doesn't tear down here. Okay. So we still have some constraint issues here. So we can't delete something here because we table register model column runner function. So if you delete the register model, is that what we're saying here? Then if we delete the run artifact, then we're gonna delete the register model with a pointer that doesn't work here. And I thought I set that up already in my entities here. Delete my register model. I guess I never actually, since I didn't do that relationship here, that is the, okay. I never defined that relationship. So right now there's no action on that relationship. And that's causing it to not clean up properly. So we can either do that as interesting. Oh, but I do have that, of course. Let's see. I do think I have that in our... Don't I have this relationship here, right? This one should be... If we delete the run artifact, we expect the register model to be cascade delete. Okay, so this one should be... This one should be referential action, cascade, yeah, probably. This is like, I feel like a surgeon here right now, trying to get this to work. But that's all good. The only thing I'm worried about here is I have to do the same thing with SQLite, I think. But we'll see. Okay, let's do this. I think the other ones should be fine. Because if I do that properly, then everything else underneath should just fall into pieces. Yeah, let's see if this causes a cyclic cascade or not. It did not. Okay, that's good. It did not. Let's see how this is doing. Okay, they were passing before, but this has to do with these tests here that were failing. But now they're passing. Okay, that seems to have been the key, is to do that. So I am super happy with that. I'm going to push this change before anything else breaks. Add additional strange. Okay, and let's double check the database, and then actually start the Cosmos one here. Make sure we have Cosmos emulator, because I want to run this in Azure as well, even though we don't have an issue with migrations there. So we can see here that we should have this one correctly point to run ID, foreign key, perfect. Register model should now be pointing correctly to these. Okay, so that looks good. That looks good. So I think that started up. Let's run the Azure test, and then if that's good, I'm going to merge things from master, so I can get the latest changes here and add a migration as well for other stuff here. Because I want to get this PR done. This PR has become enormous, but it is just what it needs to get done, I guess. Let's see. How are we all doing here? Okay. That looks good, I think. Hopefully. These are okay, these are other tests. I don't think I started those, the Azure Write ones here, so that's okay. Cool, alright, so that's working. I'm happy with that. Let's see, so now I want to pull things from master, so I need to add a blank migration for the changes that Will pushed this morning. And then we'll have to check if this actually is working. Wow, time's been flying today. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, we have some, of course, some those issues. So let's go get the latest, and then let's merge this. There's some merge conflicts. See if things work as expected there. Okay, go back to this one. Update for master. Okay, perfect. Got these conflicts. Let's fix those. I usually do that in Visual Studio. It's just easier doing that way. branches. Let's go and have a look at these changes. I think it's just some small fixes here. I'm gonna start with the model map here. I think that is just the added description that we'll add this morning. Alright, so this is my changes and this is Will's. So Will has we need the version as well. Okay, so I'm just going to manually change this. Will has, take my changes. I'm going to add the description as well. Make this lowercase because it was my mistake. And I'm going to take these other changes. Okay. Anything else here? Good. And let's look at the other two here. Get model catalog. That's probably also some stuff here. So we have added a description now here. And we have to do some manual stuff here because we are returning things now. But we do need to also add new things that Will added, which is fantastic. So I'll do that patch manually. Model description is gonna come in now. Come on, be nice. I'll just do this here. Model description is coming in, and it's going to be passed down here as well. And I want to use this one because we're going to return here, so we're going to do it this. Model description. I like the IntelliSense right there, actually. That's nice. Okay, I think that's all. And then I will do the last one here. Okay, I think I need to take my changes, but I need to add this description here everywhere. So I will take mine, because we're actually getting it on a return now instead. What's the difference? Oh. Add that. Ooh. I removed this one, and that's okay. Let's remove that one. It's okay. Okay. We don't care about that apparently. Okay. And we have next difference, next conflicts. I've already touched that, so that's okay. Okay. Okay, those should be resolved now, so let's commit that merge and let's run some migrations to see if we need to add a blank one or not here. We may not need one, but I want to definitely check that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run one against SQL Server to see if we need one or not. So I'm going to actually just update the database here, because if you look here, we should have a new migration from Will here, and there should be a description, right? And I want to make sure we add it locally, and I want to make sure to add a blank migration if needed for consolidating our models here. Let's see. Let's see, come on, do your thing. Building, that's all good. Build fail, okay. So what is it failing on? Okay, we have a method here that needs a description. That is easily fixed. I'll just push that as a separate change. Push that up, so we at least get the build working. Let's see if this works. Succeeded build list, okay. Okay, so it doesn't seem like we need additional migrations here, because if it did, we would have needed another blank migration here, instead couldn't match the current model. So that's good. It's awesome. Alright, I think this one is actually ready for review now. Let's look at the changes here before we sign off from the stream and make sure it's ready for review. So this is perfect, it's all good. And actually let me apply this to SQLite as well before anything else, just to make sure things are, you know, working as expected here. Set startup project, because I'm sure there's something else breaking here without thing. Oh, it's gonna be before it wouldn't it? Okay, that's gonna be an issue. Oh, maybe not. Okay. Okay, that's fine. We haven't started Edge right yet. Let me run this again here just to make sure. Okay, so we have the experiment. Passing that in as well now. Making it a bit more simpler here. Lots of migrations. Change some things in general. Okay, a lot of migrations, I don't really care about that. Okay, enter the resolvers. Alright, I'm gonna ask for a review because honestly we need to look at this one more in detail, but I think it'll be good to get some feedback from the team here on if this is looking good or not. Alright, so let's ask for a review here. I'm going to put a milestone of 1.0 here to get this out. And we have a failed CI build there, so let's check that first before we sign off here. Make sure we get everything working here. We don't want anything failing before the review. No such table. That's interesting. Alright, so it seems like we have a couple of issues here with SQLite, and I'm going to look at them before doing a review on this one. But I do have to sign off, get some lunch here, get my life back as well. But thank you very much for watching today. I know it's not been the most exciting stream, but it's been a useful stream. And I always appreciate that you tune in, you support this, and it's always fun to just hang out with you guys. So thank you very much for today. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend and a great week. Thank you guys.